Once upon a time, in a sun-drenched town, nestled between rolling hills and wildflower fields, there lived a little girl named Ellie. She was the youngest daughter of Governor Thompson and his wife, and although their grand white house wasn't exactly a castle, it was the most beautiful home in all of Willow Creek, complete with wraparound porches, a cherry tree orchard, and a koi pond that sparkled in the sun. Ellie had just about everything a girl her age could want. She had roller skates with rainbow wheels, a room full of books, a dog named Waffles who always slept at her feet, and shelves of colorful toys. But above all, her absolute favorite possession was a golden baseball. It wasn't a regular ball. It gleamed like the sun, and Ellie liked to imagine it had a bit of magic inside. One golden evening, just as the cicadas began their summer song, and the clouds glowed pink and orange in the sky, Ellie decided to go out and play with her golden ball. She put on her favorite sun hat, the one with blue stripes, and slipped into her well-worn red sneakers. With a smile on her face and her ball in her hands, she stepped outside into the warm southern twilight. The Thompsons' house stood at the edge of a big forest preserve, where the trees grew tall and quiet, and the paths were covered in soft moss and pine needles. Ellie often wandered there, knowing her way by heart. As she wandered deeper into the trees, tossing her ball gently in the air, she felt at peace, the way you only can when you're part of nature's hush. She walked until she found her favorite clearing, an open patch with the soft grass and a little spring-fed pond in the middle. The water was so clear, you could see pebbles and tiny darting fish below the surface. Ellie sat down by the edge of the water, her golden ball tucked in her lap, and listened to the gentle bubbling sound. With the sunlight filtering down in golden streaks, she began tossing her ball into the air. First a little toss, then a bit higher, then higher still. It sparkled against the fading sky as it flew. But then, oh no, she threw it too hard. The ball soared up, then dropped fast, bounced once on the mossy ground, and rolled right into the spring. She scrambled after it, but it was too late. The golden ball had disappeared beneath the rippling water. Ellie stared down into the pond, biting her lip. That was my favorite thing, she whispered sadly to no one. Except she wasn't alone. With a soft plop, a frog poked his head out of the water. He had bumpy green skin, big round eyes, and a tiny little smile, as if he'd heard everything. Now, this was Willow Creek. Ordinary as it might seem, sometimes magical things happen there. Lost something shiny, didn't ya? The frog said, his voice croaky but kind. Ellie blinked. Did you just talk? Sure did, he replied, paddling closer. Name's Jax. I saw what happened. Your ball's down at the bottom. I can get it for you. Ellie leaned closer, her eyes hopeful. Really? You'd do that? The frog nodded. Sure, but I need something in return. Ellie frowned. Like what? Well, Jack said, scratching his chin thoughtfully with a webbed foot. I'd like to be your friend. Come live with you. Share your dinner. Maybe have a cozy little corner to sleep in. You know, real friend stuff. Now, Ellie wasn't sure how a frog would even live in a house, let alone sleep in a room. But she wanted her ball back, badly. Okay, she said, trying to sound confident. Deal. Promise. Promise. Jax took one last look at her, then dove. Bubbles rose up from the water, and the pond went quiet. Ellie waited, heart thumping. Then, with a splash, Jax popped back up, the golden ball balanced carefully in his mouth. He tossed it gently onto the grass. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, Ellie cried, grabbing the ball and hugging it to her chest. She turned and started to run toward home, the joy of having her ball back sweeping over her. "Hey, wait," the frog called. But Ellie didn't stop. She didn't even say goodbye. That night, after a warm bath and dinner with her family, Ellie snuggled under her blanket, the golden ball on her nightstand. Outside, fireflies blinked in the dark, and Waffles snored at her feet. Everything felt just perfect again. The next evening, as her family gathered at the long wooden dining table, there was a soft knock at the front door. Tap, tap, tap. Then a familiar, croaky voice. "Open the door, dear Ellie. Your friend is here, just like you promised." Ellie froze. Her spoonful of mashed potatoes hovered in midair. "What was that?" her mom asked. Ellie didn't answer. She tiptoed to the door and peeked out. There he was, Jax the frog, sitting patiently on the porch mat, smiling up at her. She closed the door fast and leaned against it, heart pounding. "Ellie," said Governor Thompson from the table. "Who's at the door?" "It's, a frog. From the woods." Her father raised an eyebrow. "What does he want?" Ellie explained everything. About the pond, the golden ball, the promise she made. "Well," said the governor gently but firmly, "a promise is a promise. If he helped you, you should keep your word." Ellie sighed. Then, slowly, she opened the door. Jax hopped in and gave her a friendly nod. "Thanks, Ellie." He made his way across the floor, then looked up at her chair. "Mind giving me a lift?" Blushing, Ellie picked him up and placed him next to her plate. She nudged it toward him, and together they ate dinner, spaghetti, green beans, and cornbread. Jax even managed to twirl a noodle on a fork somehow. After dinner, as Ellie yawned and stretched, Jax looked up at her. "Mind showing me to my room?" he asked sweetly. Ellie blinked. "Oh, right." She carried him upstairs and made him a bed out of a shoebox lined with one of her doll's blankets. He nestled right in and closed his eyes. "Night, Ellie," he croaked softly. "Good night, Jax," she whispered, feeling strangely happy to have him there. She crawled into bed and fell asleep under the soft hum of the ceiling fan, wondering if maybe, just maybe, there was more magic in the world than she'd thought. But little did Ellie know, this was just the beginning. The next morning, Ellie woke up to the gentle sound of birds chirping outside her window. Sunlight streamed in through the curtains, painting golden stripes across her bedspread. She stretched and yawned, then remembered something that made her sit up quickly. Jax. She hopped out of bed and tiptoed to the little box beside her dresser. But when she peeked in, it was empty. "Jax," she whispered. No answer. The blanket was folded neatly, and a tiny note made from a torn piece of notebook paper was resting inside. Ellie picked it up and squinted at the lopsided handwriting. "Thanks for the room. Went for a walk. See you tonight. Jax." She stared at the note for a moment, unsure how to feel. Part of her was relieved. Maybe Jax had just decided to go back to the woods. But another part of her was disappointed. She'd gotten used to his little frog voice already. She even kind of liked it. That day passed like most summer days in Willow Creek. Slow, warm, and sweet. Ellie helped her mom pick peaches from the tree in their backyard, rode bikes with her brother Max around the cul-de-sac, and spent an hour reading her favorite adventure book out loud to Waffles. But as the sun dipped low behind the hills, and the fireflies began their flickering dance, she felt that strange excitement bubble up again. Sure enough, just as they sat down for dinner, grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup this time, there came a knock at the door. Tap, tap, tap. Then the voice. Ellie, dear, I've come back just like I said. Her mother looked up from the salad bowl. That frog again. Ellie stood slowly, her heart fluttering. She walked to the door and opened it. There he was, Jax, a bit damp from hopping through the evening dew, but grinning as wide as ever. Miss me? He asked. Ellie smiled despite herself. A little. That night went just like the one before. Jax sat beside her at the table, slurped soup like it was the best thing he'd ever eaten, and told funny stories about life in the woods. He claimed to know a squirrel who could knit, and a crow who told fortunes with shiny bottle caps. Ellie giggled all through dinner. Later she made him a slightly better bed, this time inside an old jewelry box with a tiny pillow made from her sock. Jax wiggled down into it and let out a deep sigh. Perfect, he said. As Ellie lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling fan spinning above her. Jax, yeah? Why do you want to stay here so badly? There was a pause. Let's just say, I'm waiting for something, he said quietly. Something important. Ellie didn't ask more. She didn't need to. Somehow, she understood. The next day, Jax was gone again in the morning. Another note was left in the box. Gone exploring. Save me some soup, Jax. 3 more days passed like this. Every morning, Jax vanished. Every evening, he came back with a knock, shared dinner, and slept in his tiny bed. But each night, he looked a little different. Ellie couldn't quite explain it. His skin seemed less bumpy, his eyes more curious, his voice softer. And each night, Ellie felt more glad to see him. One evening, during a thunderstorm, Jax told Ellie the truth. They were sitting on the porch, watching the rain bounce off the driveway. Can I tell you a secret? Jax asked. Ellie nodded. I wasn't always a frog, he said. I used to be a boy, a real one, with hands and hair and shoes. Ellie blinked. Really? He nodded. A fairy cursed me. She said I had to live as a frog until someone showed me real kindness. Not because I looked nice or sounded clever, but because they cared. Ellie looked at him, her heart thudding. And did I do that? He smiled, the raindrops catching the porch light behind him. You did. That night, after Ellie had tucked him into his tiny bed, she whispered, I'm glad you're here, Jax. Me too, he croaked sleepily. The next morning, Ellie opened her eyes and yawned, blinking in the golden morning light. She glanced at the jewelry box and gasped. The box was empty. But standing beside it, blinking in the sunlight, was a boy. He had dark, curly hair, green eyes that looked just like Jax's, and a smile so familiar it made Ellie's knees go weak. Morning, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Guess the magic worked. You're Jax, he nodded. I mean, the real you. Yep, full-sized and frog-free. Ellie stared for a moment, then grinned. Cool. That day, the entire house buzzed with questions. Her parents were stunned, of course, but once Jax told the story, and even proved he still liked flies on his toast a little too much, they believed him. After all, this was Willow Creek. Magic wasn't impossible here. But the story doesn't end there. That summer wasn't over yet. The forest held more secrets. The fairy who cast the curse wasn't finished. And Ellie and Jax had a lot more adventures ahead of them. Because once magic finds you, it rarely lets go. The very next morning, Ellie and Jax sat side by side on the porch swing, their feet barely brushing the wooden floor. The air smelled like sun-warmed earth and honeysuckle, and the trees whispered in the breeze. It was the kind of summer day that felt like it could go on forever. "So," Ellie said, glancing at Jax with a sideways smile, "what do we do now that you're not a frog anymore?" Jax leaned back, arms behind his head. "I guess we wait for the next bit." "The next bit of what?" He gave her a look. "You think a curse just ends and everyone lives happily ever after without a little twist?" Ellie frowned. "There's more. There's always more," Jack said. "Magic doesn't just let go that easy." As if on cue, the wind shifted. A cold gust swept across the porch, rustling the chimes by the door. For a moment, everything stilled. The leaves, the birds, even the air itself. Then, from deep within the woods, they heard it. A low, strange hum, like a song carried on the wind. It sent shivers up Ellie's spine. "You hear that?" she asked. Jax nodded slowly. "That's her." "Who?" "The fairy. The one who cursed me. She's coming." They didn't have to wait long. That evening, just as the sun was dipping low and the sky turned peach and lavender, a shadow appeared at the edge of the forest. She stepped out slowly, tall, elegant, her cloak made of spider silk and morning mist. Her hair shimmered like moonlight, and her eyes glowed a pale, eerie silver. Ellie and Jax stood on the porch, watching as the fairy came closer. "Jax," she said, her voice smooth as honey but sharp as a knife. "You broke the curse. Impressive. Most never do." Jax took a breath. "You said someone had to show me true kindness." Ellie did. "I'm free now." The fairy tilted her head. "You're not wrong, but I never said it ended there." She turned to Ellie, eyes narrowing slightly. "You, girl, you made the promise. You kept it, yes, but you also ran away. You forgot your word, just for a moment." "I didn't mean to," Ellie said quickly, her voice small but steady. "I didn't think he'd come back, but when he did, I made it right." The fairy gave a long, slow smile. "So you did. But magic has memory, child, and every act has a ripple." She raised her hand. Wind swirled, lifting leaves in a circle around them. Jack stepped in front of Ellie protectively. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm not punishing," the fairy said. "I'm testing." Then, just like that, she was gone. No puff of smoke, no shimmer of light, just gone. And in her place, on the porch where she'd stood, was a box. Wooden, smooth, carved with tiny stars. Jax picked it up and turned it over. "There's no lock," he murmured. "No hinges." Ellie reached out and touched it. Instantly, the box split open without a sound, and a burst of golden dust rose into the air. When it cleared, they saw what was inside. A map. A real one. Hand-drawn with old ink and curious little creatures in the margins. Trees twisted into shapes, mountains that blinked, rivers that curled like question marks. At the top it said, "To undo the ripple, follow the path." Ellie and Jax looked at each other. "Looks like our summer just got interesting," she said. The next day, they packed. Ellie stuffed a backpack with peanut butter sandwiches, 2 flashlights, her favorite compass, and a walkie-talkie she'd begged her brother to borrow. Jax brought a pocket knife, a roll of string, and a water bottle that used to belong to the forest rangers. They told Ellie's parents they were going on a long hike. Nothing too crazy. Governor Thompson gave them an approving nod, though he did raise an eyebrow when he saw the map. "Looks like you're chasing more than squirrels out there," he said. "We are," Ellie replied with a smile. And so, they set off. The forest that surrounded Willow Creek wasn't huge, but it held more secrets than anyone ever guessed. The map led them through parts Ellie had never seen before. A grove of trees where the branches twisted into spirals. A mossy hill that seemed to hum beneath their feet. A stream that flowed backward, water rushing uphill without explanation. They followed the map closely, marking trees with chalk so they wouldn't get lost. Every now and then, the map changed, ink shifting, symbols moving. "It's alive," Jax whispered. "It's showing us only what we're ready for." By the third day, they reached the edge of the known forest and stepped into something else entirely. The trees grew taller here, their trunks wide as trucks. Flowers the size of dinner plates bloomed in the shade, and strange bird calls echoed from the canopy. And at the center of it all, they found a clearing. In the clearing stood a stone pedestal. On it sat a second box, this one dark as midnight, wrapped in vines. As they approached, Ellie reached out carefully, but the moment her fingers brushed it, a soft crack echoed through the air. The vines fell away, and the box opened. Inside was nothing, or so it seemed, till Jax looked closer. "No," he said slowly. "There's something." A tiny glass marble, no bigger than a blueberry, floated in the middle of the box, spinning gently. "What is it?" Ellie whispered. "I think it's the ripple," Jax said. "The piece of magic she said we stirred up." Just then the air shimmered, and the fairy appeared again. "Well done," she said. "You found it." "What do we do with it?" Ellie asked. The fairy's expression turned serious. "Keep it safe. It holds wild magic. It can make or undo things, but only if used wisely." Jax reached for the marble. It hovered for a moment above his palm, then slowly sank into his hand and vanished. "I trust you both," the fairy said, "for now." And then she disappeared again, this time for good. As Ellie and Jax stood in the quiet clearing, the map slowly curled in on itself and crumbled to dust. The path was complete. They turned toward home, backpacks lighter, hearts fuller. Magic had come to Willow Creek, and it had chosen them. But as they stepped into the golden light of the setting sun, neither of them noticed the shimmer in the trees behind them. Two eyes glowing, watching. Their adventure wasn't over yet. The summer days in Willow Creek had grown longer and warmer since Ellie and Jax returned from the clearing with the magic marble. Everything should have felt peaceful, like the end of a fairy tale. But something had changed. The sky still turned cotton candy pink at sunset, and the fireflies still danced over the backyard. But Ellie felt it in her chest. The ripple wasn't finished. Jax felt it too. Every now and then he'd stop in the middle of talking, as if listening to something far away. Once, he even said the trees were whispering. Ellie had laughed at first, but then she remembered how the map had moved, how the vines had fallen away without a touch, how the marble had disappeared into his hand without a trace. There was more coming. It started with the dreams. Ellie woke one night gasping, her blankets tangled and damp with sweat. She had seen a river made of stars, a silver gate hanging in the sky, and someone, something, calling her name. Not a voice exactly, but a pull, like her heart leaning towards something it couldn't see. The next morning, Jax looked pale and quiet at breakfast. "You too?" he asked before she even spoke. She nodded. Later that day, they returned to the woods, hoping to find answers. But the trail they had taken before, the one with the spiral trees and backward flowing stream, was gone. Literally gone. The woods looked normal again. Familiar. Ordinary. "It's hiding," Jax murmured. "Whatever comes next is not ready to be found." But that wasn't quite true, because 2 nights later, it found them. It was late. Ellie was curled up on her bed, reading by flashlight, and Jax was in his box bed beneath the windowsill. A breeze fluttered the curtains, and the house was quiet. Then came the knock, but not on the door, on the glass. Ellie turned. A girl was standing outside her bedroom window. She looked to be about Ellie's age, but she shimmered faintly, like sunlight on water. Her eyes were pale gold. She wore a dress made of night sky, scattered with little white stars. And she was barefoot, even though the ground outside was damp with dew. Ellie opened the window cautiously. "Who are you?" The girl smiled, gentle but sad. "I'm called Solara. I'm from the between." Jax sat up fast. "The between," he repeated. Solara nodded. "The place between dreams and waking, between past and future, between magic and memory, and something's breaking it." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a stone, flat, round, glowing faintly. "This is a shard of a dream that didn't finish. More and more of them are slipping into your world. Cracks are forming." "Because of the ripple?" Ellie asked. "Yes," Solara said. "You fixed the curse, but the magic inside it didn't just vanish. It woke something else, something older, something sleeping." Jax rubbed his arms. "I don't like the sound of that." "You shouldn't," Solara said. "It's called the Hollow." Ellie blinked. "What is it?" "It's the place where forgotten things go. Lost dreams, broken promises, discarded magic. The Hollow feeds on neglect. It's been asleep for a long time. But your kindness, your choices, they stirred it." "So, what do we do?" Ellie asked, voice shaking just a little. "You come with me," Solara said simply, "to the between, to seal it before the Hollow breaks through." And just like that, the wall behind Solara shimmered and turned into a swirling mirror of stars. Ellie looked at Jax. He nodded. "Let's go." Without saying goodbye, they stepped through the window and into the between. It felt like falling and floating all at once. The stars weren't above them. They were them. Trails of color danced in every direction. Shapes formed and melted. Trees made of clock gears, rivers of ink, stairs made of music notes. "This place is amazing," Ellie whispered. Solara led them through a shifting landscape that seemed to move as they moved. Finally, they arrived at a hill shaped like a crescent moon, with a silver gate at the top. Beyond it, Ellie saw a shadow, huge, shifting, empty as a black hole. "That's the Hollow," Solara said softly. "It's trying to come through." "We have the marble," Jack said. "Can it stop it?" "Only if you give something in return," Solara replied. "What kind of something?" "A memory, a powerful one. Magic needs balance. To close the Hollow, you must offer part of your own story." Ellie and Jax looked at each other. "I'll do it," Ellie said quickly. "I'll give one." "No," Jax said. "It's my ripple. I'll do it." Solara held out her hand. "Think carefully," she warned. Jax closed his eyes. And then he let go. He gave up the memory of the moment Ellie had opened the door and let him in for the first time. He'd remember her kindness, yes, but not the moment she showed it. The exact look in her eyes, the warmth in her voice. It faded from him like smoke. The marble shimmered gold, pulsed with light, and flew into the gate. There was a sound like a bell ringing through the stars. Then the Hollow screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was a feeling. Cold, endless, empty. But it couldn't pass through. The gate sealed shut. The between fell quiet. Solara turned to them. "You did it." Jax wobbled slightly, and Ellie grabbed his hand. "You okay?" she asked. He smiled, tired but brave. "I think so. I just feel like something's missing." She squeezed his fingers. "It's okay. I remember for both of us." And with that, Solara touched their shoulders, and they were back in Ellie's bedroom, curtains fluttering, flashlight on the floor, Waffles snoring at the foot of the bed. But something had changed. Jax looked older somehow, not in his face, but in his eyes. And Ellie, she felt lighter, like a piece of magic still clung to her. The between was closed, the hollow was sealed, but the story was far from over. Because in Willow Creek, magic didn't just leave. It waited, and it had its eyes on them. Days after their return felt both quiet and full. Willow Creek looked the same. Sunlight fell through the trees, the cicadas buzzed lazily in the afternoons, and the neighbors watered their gardens like always. But Ellie and Jax saw the world differently now. Once you'd walked through stars and sealed an ancient shadow behind a silver gate, it was hard to forget. Even if no one else could see it, the magic was still there, woven into the cracks of the sidewalks, glinting in the corner of your eye, whispering in the rustle of leaves. Jax had changed. He laughed a little softer, listened a little longer, and sometimes paused, as if trying to remember something just out of reach. Ellie never reminded him. She kept the memory safe. The moment she first opened the door, the way his little frog eyes had looked up at her, uncertain and hopeful. That memory belonged to her now, and she would treasure it. One evening as they sat on the porch steps eating popsicles, Jax asked, "Do you think we'll ever go back to the between?" Ellie looked at the sky. It was the same dusky blue as that dream river they'd seen. "Maybe, if something calls us. What if it doesn't?" She smiled. "Then we wait. Or maybe we make our own kind of magic right here." That summer, they did just that.